Welcome to the Systems of Life Dreamtime to Real Time podcast. I've also called it Lyndon's Mastery podcast because a lot of people don't really know what high performance is. If I change it to a system in life, a few people might think, oh, yes, I follow a good system. Maybe I don't. But everyone trying to follow a morning routine is trying to follow a system. A foam roller, that's a system. Cricket, here, a system. Football there, rugby league, rugby union, AFL in Australia, a system. Golf over here, tennis, a system, and a 65,000-year-old system here behind me. Aboriginal artefacts from when we were back out on country, living in Northern Territory, Australia, where I spent time growing up, and I've just spent another decade up there learning from a just profound genius level culture, all right? And culture is really interesting to me. This is just what I do. I wake up every single day doing this. So if you're trying to work out who I am, what I do, what I'm trying to say here, always remember it's part of a maybe couple of billion thoughts, definitely a 2 million word journey, boiled down to maybe 200 to 300 headings. I know where the ending is after 48 years. I have about 10 different backgrounds, and they are pretty much automatic each day, which allows me to look at things in very, very different ways. And immediately, if you've read hundreds of books like I have, although it's not a competition, you will start being triggered right now thinking, yes, that's high performance. I know what he's saying. I understand what he's saying. Because if you don't understand that, it means you just want to do the same thing. And Einstein has some definitions of insanity you should be able to look up on the internet fairly quickly. Now, today, I've just really been thinking about high performance and low performance. It's funny because as soon as I mention mastery, like in Australia, high performance, even a system of life, I don't know what it is, whether it's insecurity, combination of ego, it's all low performance there, remember. People just not switch off, but think it doesn't mean anything to them. So I flip it and say, well, what about your goals up here in life? So, heading up to the sun and stars, like brightness here. Here's where a lot of people are, maybe 40, 60 or 80% of people, especially after COVID, great resignation, the great migration around Australia, young families packing up, homeschooling kids, which is fantastic to see actually. Hybrid work rosters, work from home. So they're questioning their life. They might be here, sort of head maybe just above water or just below. And you don't want to be down here, which is, anxiety, depression, divorce, domestic violence, stalking, suicide, bullying, intimidation, harassment, occupational violence now, just sort of a job for that, to prevent that in Australia here. We've had about 10 to 15 years of parliamentary inquiries on some of the worst behaviour. You wouldn't even believe it was happening in Australia, but it is. And look, we've all been guilty of it. There's no perfect human. That's why I started this podcast with humans aren't perfect. And if you map everyone right back to when they were 2 years old, you'll probably find 10,000 infringements before they get to the age of 20 on every workplace's zero harm vision, mission statement, code of conduct, policy and procedure. So there's no use looking for the perfect news reporter, news producer just about to attack someone and assassinate their career, judge, police person, lawyer, doctor, sports person, business person, because they don't exist. So let's just, between you and I, work on that. We're not perfect and move forward here. So you're not attacking me. I'm not attacking you. But this is what I love to do. For some reason, I wake up every day wanting to do this. How long I spend trying to help people will be interesting. I might just go and work with animals. I've been filming crocodiles and animals for animals for a long time, crocodiles for 10 years straight at specific locations, and just trying to work out whether a reptile with a brain that big, whose lineage goes back to the dinosaurs, by the way, is smarter than a human with a football-sized brain here. And sometimes I'm thinking crocodiles for me are a lot safer to hang around than most humans in most workplaces. And straight away, that goes to into a system, and that is a low-performance system here, being attacked by your own teammates. Let me just say that again, teammates, all right? So if you're wondering, why people don't want to go to work in Australia. Okay, it's because they just get assassinated at work. Gabor Mate's, I hope I pronounced that right, Myth of Normal, stated that a bad workplace is worse than being unemployed. Okay, and that guy is smart. Very, very current information, his lifetime's work. I do recommend you read that book if you're interested in culture, all right? But it's funny, a lot of people I've met in sport don't actually realize they're also in culture. And if they hear me talk like this, they'll just want to know what the next set rep to do is, next bit of food to eat. But when they're on TV and people are assessing whether to sponsor them, all right, and the audience is deciding whether to like you or not, you're in culture, all right? If you're in business and you have massive staff turnover, I remember I worked in a business globally. It was set up from Australia here, worth billions of dollars. Like, that's a huge success story. And the word was then that there's nothing they could do to earn money that would outdo just retaining a staff member. Okay, back in the day, it was something like $40,000 to just retrain a staff member of lost productivity. It'd probably be $80,000 now at least. As I speak today, February 2024, I'm seeing news headlines in Australia, 150 teachers short in this territory, 500 teachers short over here, 39% of teachers, young ones, thinking about leaving. That's a culture problem, okay? And there's two trigger points in that. I've had experiences in schools for over 30 years. Not that it's a competition, all right, but from a mental health, human performance, a low performance, and anxiety, depression, and suicide prevention standpoint, maybe in high performance resources industry. And in the resources industry, you're on the road a lot. You're in one bedroom accommodation. You're away from loved ones. And it's a lot like sport, actually. And you have a lot of the fallout from being isolated, including loneliness, no one to talk to, or being too close to too many people for too long. You can't get away from them. So it's very, very interesting. And in the end, all of this funnels in to a human body, okay? So while I'm here on a super hot day, sweating, trying to articulate this, I'm wondering who's going to be listening and who's not going to be listening. And the 300 hours I've just finished talking to high-performance coaches, say at Olympic level, mental health, ex-athletes, retired coaches now commentating, retired players now commentating, current players, current athletes. Oops, starting to sweat. It's been really interesting because in that 300 hours, now you couldn't work for another employer and do that 300 hours. So straight away, if you're trying to compete with me, you would have to designate 16 hours a day doing what I do with my 10 different backgrounds. So don't worry about competing. Just get on with me. I might be working with you one day as a performance advisor. Take it or leave it. No stress from me. I'll be doing this forever. So it's what I just love doing. Okay. And see, note how I keep going back to competition there. What is high performance? What is culture? Well, I spotted a heap of athletes not listening to their coaches. Insanity. These athletes were overtaken by people by the age of 18 or 20. The athletes not listening are in their prime. They could be injured today and their career is over. They could have one shot at making a team, a championship, getting to a semi-final, winning a championship, being great, achieving their goals, or being the greatest, whatever that is, okay? And it's, for me, really, really interesting because I spotted what's happening there exactly the same as what's happening here when I was trying to prevent teammates from bullying, intimidating, harassing, belittling, pushing people through anxiety, depression, stalking and suicide and all that. Okay. Lifeline 13 11 24, I think the number is in Australia if you need crisis support. Okay. Make sure you have that number in your phone. Just thought I'd mention that right now. And in the end, that's coercive control. Okay. So The smart person might listen and filter and take whatever information you want. Yep. Remember, we all have massive bias. We are biased beings, okay? The funnel of our life, whatever we've done, say it's all just funneling in information. Born in the city, grew up in the city, went to school in the city, studied in the city, and went to get a job for money in the city. Oh, look, you could divide that up into a few different backgrounds, but in the end, that for me is close to one system of life. One, okay? 8 billion people on the planet, lots of different systems here, all right? Asiatic region, just off our north here in Australia, very, very profound in many systems and many areas of culture, where they are way better, it is fair to say, than us here in Australia. And I'll quote the latest parliamentary inquiry on Australians bullying, belittling, beating up old people in retirement homes. And I did some simple maths the other day. I could be wrong, but it looked like it was every 13 minutes. Okay. And yet I've talked to people from the Asiatic region. I've been lucky to spend a lot of time with beautiful people from Asia. And in general, from what I've been taught, how you look after your elderly in many of those regions is a summary of your culture. Okay, huge differences there. And you sit back thinking, right, how does all this work? So super complex, this is how I think. But in the end, when you're trying to create a very, very good culture in sport, you're a millionaire. You got 25 million in the bank. 25 million. Seriously. You've got a massage therapist, a dietitian, a coach, strength and conditioner, physio, family, whoever else you want. You know, some Olympians have to chop firewood to get to their own Olympics. They compete in front of no one. So no ego fulfillment there, okay? They have to work 40 hours a week, whether it's bricklaying or 20 hours a week here and study there. So if you're in a sport where you're super rich, you have zero excuses for not listening to coaches. Yes, you might not get on with coaches, but in the end, you might actually need a coach telling you what you don't want to hear. For instance, if you're physically not fit in an elite sport and you have to be competing for 80 minutes at an extremely high heart rate, okay, where high level skills need to be deployed immediately, it costs your whole team the game. Like, you need to be sacrificing within reason, okay, but sacrificing a lot to be there, or you're letting yourself and everyone else down. If you're in an individual sport where you're playing someone for 4 days or 5 days in cricket, golf, okay, or 5 hours in tennis or 3 or 4 hours on TV, your weaknesses are going to be spotted straight up. And for the 20 years, you're going to be tortured out there on court with people attacking your weaknesses. And then all your sponsors and all future coaches, if you want the best coaches in the world, if they see you not change and not apply yourself, they're not going to go to you. They're going to go to someone else. All right. I saw a fantastic post-match interview. I think it was Jim Courier with Carlos Alcaraz, and he's young and he's good. They said, "What are you doing next?" And Carlos said, "What my coaches want me to, basically, for recovery." And I thought, yeah, interesting. Then I looked at another player in their mid-20s who's getting rid of coaches, another player abusing people continuously, which would not be allowed in any workplace with their policies, procedures, zero harm, vision, mission statements, and all the rest of it, okay, especially with mental health coming through, which it should have been a long, long time ago. I think society has been built in reverse, all right? And you sit back thinking, imagine a sponsor watching that person abuse people. Why didn't associations pull that person up? How is this behavior condoned? Is it a good example for our children? Now I'm talking about people in their 20s, people with plenty of advisors, people within industry bodies, people on TV, okay? We've all not said good things in our life. I'm not going to go back through your history or through every news reporter's history, okay? But you've got 25 million in the bank and you're not listening to coaches. You're blaming coaches while you're on court. That's insanity. A lot of sports, you don't receive coaching. You're out there to sort it out yourself. Some sports have huge people running at you and you need to tackle and smash them even if you're half their size. So that's more like a predator-prey relationship. Like, you could really get serious injuries from that. So that's maybe a lot tougher sport, you could say. And the toughest sport of all time, going back here and here, is hunting gathering. Spears all hands on, okay? And you're tackling some big animals there, and a lot of people don't live. Yeah, after let's just say, hunting an animal in 45 degrees, running it down all day, like on those David Attenborough documentaries in Africa, with a spear, a wounded animal, let alone trying to survive in crocodile-infested, snake-infested, shark-infested country like the Northern Territory of Australia for 60,000 years. And they're all systems, okay, high or low performance systems. They all require listening and learning and looking and observation. And it's really interesting for me. It's a shame in a way, because other people would give their right arms and legs to get to a point of having 25 million in the bank, and to be there and not listen to high performance advisors. I can see coaches now going, cross that person off the list. There's no way I'm going over there. So I thought of some strategies. I thought, well, I'll be the guy that says this online. I'll be the guy that a 12-year-old to 18-year-old listens to and says, yeah, okay, I'm going to be competing against that group of people in a few years. I want their coaches. I want the best people to sponsor me as well. I don't want to make the mistakes they make. And you can see by the way Alcaraz has been trained, his game surpasses people that have been training for a long time ahead of him. And he's trained basically so he doesn't have their weaknesses. That's just my analysis of it anyway. And that's just smart training. If that person like him keeps listening, keeps progressing, oh, yeah, formidable, to say the very least. And the thing is if you want to win a major and you're leading people not only up here, like Djokovic, you've got to compete against him with his bars like right up here. And you're allowing people to go past you from underneath, and you're here and you've got one shot at a Grand Slam in your life. Absolute madness not to be listening to the best coaches in the world. Okay, if you don't like them, yep, sever agreements and all the rest of that. But you have to also consider the coach's mental health here, your trainer's mental health, okay? If you have them turning up in fear every session, scared, do you think they're going to go back and actually be in the state, the zone, to write your best program, technically and tactically, to beat your opposition? No, you're not. So it's really weird that I have to do a clip like this in 2024 on a high and low performance understanding and misunderstanding. And I'll tell you what, I've met some athletes 20 years after their career, or 10 years at the highest level, say like at the Olympics, and they regret not changing, not doing more, and not maybe listening to coaches. I see a change today to hiring, look, I'm not going to maybe say softer, but more gentle coaches. And look, maybe we had some Jurassic coaches, and that's the reason. In society, we're evolving in some areas, okay, regressing in others. But you often need the coach that's going to tell you what you don't want to hear. So here's a strategy for the coach. If you already have a very high maintenance player, or if you're a player and you haven't matured as much, let's just say, maybe work out how you can technically and tactically break down where you can improve, looking at it from a positive, okay, strengths-based, if you want to, go that way. Other people call it realism. How many errors did you make? How many tackles did you miss? How many tries did we score? What did the opposition do? Where can we improve? How do we work on that? You have to approach that topic somehow. If you're a new coach and a new player, set that up straight away and have a call-out sign, a gentle one. If we're moving away from that, if someone's being too high maintenance where we can't actually talk about high performance, you're not in high performance, okay? Doesn't have to be super direct, but you have to actually address it and not take it personally somehow, and develop a method to do that, all right? Yes, I know this has been talked about in coaching manuals probably for thousands of years, most likely going back 60,000 here with original people and back before that. However, I still see coaches and athletes not have that set up today, all right? You could say, you're doing that thing again. You could do it like that, have a laugh about it, and where you could all improve. But in the end too, don't forget, you have quitting points, personality types, and some people just don't like training, don't want to train. They're there for money. Okay, and the best you can do is the best you can do. Sign off on it. Don't blame the coach on it. You have to take the responsibility for that as a player. You can see there's current players now that do not even 10% of what the top players do. You can see that straight away. They're injured, by the way, right now. And I predicted that 10 years ago. I said, see these players right here, that guy there, and that guy right there. I put their names down. They'll be injured. Early, they should have won this. They didn't. Stuff will happen after their career finishes. Mentally, they won't be set up for life either. And it'll be very, very interesting. You've got one shot at it. Remember, you've got people, might be bricklaying, chopping wood, competing in stadiums where there's no one there. They might be in the limelight for a few seconds, once every 4 years. And if you're on a circuit where you've got tens of millions of dollars to set up an entire support network and you're not listening to them in sport, I think that's the definition of craziness. And I'd also want to put a mental health alert out there for your mental health, because if you're coercively controlling your team like that, if there are switched on people in businesses, they'll see that. Switched on people in mental health, okay, in psychology, you should have already addressed this. That just can't happen. And there's red alerts for that now in business and in society and on social media as well. But if people are allowed to do this in a certain realm and they're called role models, it's going to be super hard to bring that back, because everyone will say, well, that person over there is doing it and they did this, or they'll justify it. You don't have to be a psycho to be super, super elite. You can actually be, I think, better than one. You can be extremely focused, absolutely, extremely focused, but not listening. You running the whole team, like, why would you have a coach? Why have a trainer? Why have a physio if you know everything? Remember, business can be a silo, sport can be a silo, an echo chamber, okay? Big organizations can be echo chambers and silos. It's very, very hard to think clearly when you're in the middle of it, when you have a lot of scrutiny. It is good sometimes to get people from outside to have a look. But I'm trying to give solutions here to people over the last 300 hours of really listening, taking notes, writing down high performance, writing down what low performance is, writing down what wasn't cool 20 years ago and it's still happening now. And I've noticed that a few countries might be lacking and a few countries are way ahead of Australia, absolutely. But who's going to tell this group of people? And the thing is if you're not managing your cortisol, your adrenaline, okay, dopamine, serotonin, seriously, like, you're going to be back in the Serengeti, fight or flight, predator prey. So you want to be managing all this for your absolute best performance, okay? And yes, I do realize some players will be doing this at times on purpose on court or on the field to trigger that, but you can't continuously be doing that and be abusive, okay, and expect people to be around. Because remember, you're going to go through tough times and you need coaches and friends and family to be there to support you, okay? And trust me, I've been in mental health long enough and physical health and in sport. I use a high tide, low tide analogy. Everyone goes through tough times down here. And if you've abused everyone on the way and you've got no one there to dig you out, okay, and especially after your career where they're not going to put up with how you're behaving now, you could end up with no friends, no real friends at all, not trusting anyone, no really deep relationships. And depending on where you are as a human, you might really need that. If you like a lot of time by yourself, you might not need as many, but you still need a certain group and a certain amount of contact as social beings, all right? So you see, I'm thinking later on, I've already seen this a couple of million times here. I've seen people end up here, disappointed they weren't there, and now I see people squandering opportunities, and I sit back thinking, wow, I'm just going to get up in front of the camera and talk about this as a coach, sweating or not, and whether people like it or not, because I can see high-level coaches and some of the most maybe famous ones in the world, they obviously haven't got this set up with their player, and they haven't set it up at the start. But I do know, I won't mention these coaches now, later on I will. Some coaches have. They've said straight up, I'm going to talk like this. If we can't talk like this, if we can't address this, or if you're not going to do this, we'll just part ways. They set it up right from the start, and that's usually in the personal development scene or in high performance or even in mental health. That's called boundaries, okay? And getting to know your player and getting to know your coach and your support team. But I just can't think of a worse environment for coaches, conditioners, trainers, the whole support crew than to be tippy-toeing around on eggshells, not knowing whether they're employed tomorrow or not due to the mood of the athlete in front of them who has millions of dollars, okay? So just watch out. There's evil in everyone. It's the management of that system to extract the good, then it go even further to high performance, okay? And you can see it when people are always going through coaches, all right? Physically not doing the training, mentally they don't have the strategies out there on court. You can see that straight away. And you're taking on some of the most maybe supreme athletes that have ever competed. And to beat them, you've actually got to get to their level, then hold it for like 80 minutes or 5 hours, 4 days, and then you have to pass them. Oh, seriously, that for me looks like a nearly the John Wick impossible equation, okay? And I'm just worried that I've seen a lot of athletes squandering it. If this triggers you to actually change and be a better person, and as a coach, if this gives you better physical and mental health, a trainer, massage therapist, dietitian, physio, please let me know. And thanks for listening.